What is up, YouTube? So today I'm going to do another unedited raw video for you guys, no edits whatsoever. And so to start it off, I want to tell you that I will be doing a story for you guys, and I'm actually gonna get my timer out so I don't ramble on. So this story will be paraphrased in order to keep it succinct and under 10 minutes rather than the full story, which might be longer, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And you still get the meat of the story. And before I get to it, just a quick update on stuff, because some of you guys might want to know that. Yeah, in terms of girls, it hasn't been going too well. I feel like if I meet a girl, like I met this girl and I asked for her Facebook, or I asked for her full name, and then I found her Facebook from there. And as far as Facebook's concerned, I just don't do well on there. It's just I come across too overly gay and too overly, nice and friendly, like this, like somewhat, gay figure, and it just doesn't go well with the girl. I just come off like how a gay guy would. Like too feminine, I guess. Like, hey, how's it going? How's life? And yeah, they don't respond. So it was going well initially, like, but not even. Like, she responded with like 2 words. Like I went on this whole spiel asking about like what shoes she was wearing, and she responded with 2 words, which was the brand of the shoe. And then I didn't message her on Facebook for quite a while, and recently I did it again, asking on how was life, and she did not respond. But at the same time, it's like this girl plays soccer and she's like this sporty person, whereas me, I like biology. I'm a biology major, and I freaking do a lot of nerdy stuff, video games and manga and stuff like that. So I still think you can still have a great relationship. You can still get along and have a lot to talk about, even if you actually have no hobbies in common. I think it still can be done. You just have to have like your personalities mesh really well. But right now that's not happening. But I feel like it can be done, even if we have like no common ground in terms of interest. But yeah, I just came across really bad on Facebook, and I didn't really talk about much. So that's the advice for those people watching. No Facebook, talk in person, keep it to at the very least text messages, stay off Facebook. Anyhow, here we go with the story that's the main part of this video. So I'm going to try and keep it under 10 minutes, and it's a great story. Somewhat. It'll teach you a lot of stuff. So back in high school, I was, at least for the freshman, sophomore phase, somewhat of a darker figure. Like, I wore dark clothes. I wore this dark green hoodie because that was the closest to black that I had, and it was the closest thing to decent fashion I had. So I wore this dark green hoodie every day, and for pants and stuff I just wore like jeans and stuff like that. I always thought, like, to a point, like I was wearing like a black hoodie, but it was a dark green hoodie, looking back at the pictures. So it was kind of lame, but I guess you could say I was emo, but I was not emo. I still had, somewhat of the personality I have now. So it's not like an emo death personality, but it was kind of darker. I guess it was me trying to be cool. And so it was back in the phase. It was right after the phase where you were the kid who just wore what your parents put out for you. So if your parents, put out like really long socks that went up to your knees, that's what I would wear. And I didn't know it was bad until I went into school and people gave me weird looks and stuff like that. I didn't know, and there were pictures of me wearing this kind of stuff, like socks up to my knees, and clothing that was like bright orange and from a blatantly obvious department store, like Sears or Children's Place, like a definite children style of clothing. And I would wear this to school, and it would look kind of weird. And at the time, I didn't know, I didn't care. I just wore whatever my parents laid out for me. And obviously there was a little bit of lack of fashion sense on my parents' part, and the lack of money. And so I was not the best looking kid. In terms of physical strength, physical ability, I was the kid who was very skinny. Like, I have these pictures. I was skinny but pudgy at the same time because I ate whatever I want. I was nearsighted because I watched too much TV, and therefore I had glasses, and I just did not groom myself at all. So I had hair shooting out everywhere, and it was a whole mess. Like, my backpack, like I thought it was cool back then to just carry around my binder, because that was the thing to do. You didn't need backpacks, so I just carried around this big bright orange binder rather than have a backpack, and it would have all my stuff in it, all the worksheets, all the dividers for all the classes, and that was how I was. Let me just check the time real quick. Okay, I still have time. And I was quite the nerd. So obviously my self-esteem did not do so well, and I was not like I wasn't that dark a figure, but I was kind of quiet. I didn't talk much, and you could say at times I was kind of dark, but deep down I was still how I am now, which is, I would talk, and I was a normal person. I would, converse with people normally. I was not like a emo death kind of person who had a morbid and very terse sense of conversation. Like, I would talk, but to most people I was somewhat like that. I would give very short responses. But before I ramble too much, let's get to the meat of the conversation, or the story. So, on my way to school, I would take the bus to school every day, and I would always get on the bus, and I would sit in the middle towards the back, and I would go to school. And then after finishing school, I would come back home, and I'd be happy to come back home because I was the only one at home, save my grandparents, and I could go on the computer or watch cable television, watch all the big shows like Digimon, Pokemon, or just play like RuneScape on the computer back then. And so it was really cool for me because my parents weren't home to stop me from doing that, and so I'd be very excited to come home every day. And so here's the big part of the story. There's this Asian girl. She went to the same neighborhood I went to, and therefore she would go on the bus with me quite a lot. Not with me, but there was 2 big bus stops at our neighborhood because our neighborhood was huge, and she was on the second one. I was on the first. So she would come on second after our bus stopped at the second stop, and she was like one of the most popular people in her grade. At the time, I was either a late sophomore or early junior, most likely late sophomore. But the point is, for those of you who don't know, sophomore is second year in high school. Anyhow, late sophomore, I would just do my thing, and it would be pretty much like I just get on a bus, whatever. This girl was like a freshman, straight up freshman. In fact, I'm pretty sure I was a junior. So early junior year, she was definitely like very popular. You could tell from just like how she interacted with people, like you could just tell. And I was just like, oh, whatever. and she was completely different from me. I don't think there are leagues, because there's no such thing as leagues, but for lack of a better term, you could technically say she was on a different league than me, because she knew her fashion. She was wearing what you wanted to wear back in the day, or whatever the phrase is right now. She was wearing what the people would want to wear at the time. So at the moment it was North Face. She wore the North Face. She wore the UGG boots. She wore all the stuff that you're supposed to wear at the time. And you know, she had the tight jeans that were like, you know, expensive and stuff like that. And the thing was, I liked the fact that she wasn't arrogant. Like, she was wearing this stuff, but just by the way she talked and the way she looked, she seemed very nice and fairly approachable. And okay, she wasn't approachable, but she seemed nice. She seemed humble, which was big, and she didn't seem arrogant, despite, you know, wearing all this high-end stuff. And even the way she was dressed, it wasn't like she was super rich. You could tell, like, she set out her money to buy this, and she didn't have that much of it. Like, you would see her with new stuff every now and then, but like new dresses, new flowery dresses and stuff like that. But it wasn't like she was super rich and she wore like a new Gucci bag every day. Like the white North Face sweater thing that she always wore, she wore quite a lot during the winter. So you knew this girl was not rich, but she still, you know, organized her money very well to spend it well on fashion. Anyhow, most famous, was she the most popular girl in the school? Most likely not. Most popular girl in the grade? No, but she knew she was good looking, but she was humble at the same time, you could tell, and she conversed with lots of people, so she was fairly popular. Anyhow, the year goes on, and then starting like winter, like towards the middle of the year, this starts happening. So I'm sitting alone in the middle of the bus. You know how buses are, 2 per seat. And she does this thing, you know, she walks in and there's empty seats everywhere. I'm sitting alone, looking through the window. She does this thing where she looks around and there's all these empty seats next to me, and then you know how she's like, you know how the people are where they like pretend that you can sit anywhere, but you're almost acting like you're just going to randomly choose a seat, but you know that you deliberately want to sit there. I mean, it's hard to explain, but basically, she sits down next to me, and you could tell something was up, because there's all these empty 2 seats everywhere, but she chose to sit next to me. Like, if you know how a bus works, there's an aisle in the middle, and then on each side there's rows of seats where 2 people can sit. And so I was sitting alone, and there's plenty of empty seats with 2 people that she could sit, but she straight up sat next to me. And I'm like, at the time I was very confused, because I was like, what is this girl doing? She could sit anywhere. And my self-esteem at the time was like, it was like no attractive girls could be into me, or could it be? And so it was a big shocker to me. And the first time it happened, I was just like, whatever. I looked through the window. I wasn't really sure what was going on, so I just let it pass. And occasionally she would sit somewhere else, but at least at the beginning, she did it quite a lot. Like, she just, you know, went up, where should I sit? Oh, I'll just sit here, or whatever. And looking back, it was pretty obvious that she wanted to sit next to me. and she did a pretty bad job in trying to pretend she was just sitting anywhere else. I mean, she technically did a good job. She looked at her phone a lot. After she sat down, she looked at her phone quite a lot, and she was playing on her phone. And judging from how she was doing it, she wasn't actually doing much on her phone. So she was just trying to pretend to be busy. And at the time, I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, my self-esteem at the time was like, I always knew like I was decent looking. Like, behind the bad clothing, behind the awkward, skinny body, and behind the glasses, I knew I had a decent, good-looking, above-average face. And I knew like if I had good fashion, and if I worked on my body, and if I wore contacts, I was actually a decent, good-looking, above-average person in terms of body and face. And I don't know what it was, but part of me kind of thought I had a chance with these people, but then the majority was like, dude, you have few friends. How can this girl be interested in me? And so I got flung into this strange sort of situation where it was like, you've just been conditioned to think, just mind your own business, unless someone blatantly like comes up to you and asks you, do you want to make out? Then ignore it, because there's no way anyone will be interested in you. And then there's a small part of me that thought, okay, this is somewhat strange. I think she's kind of made it somewhat clear that this girl might be interested in me. And so I kind of got flung into this dynamic where I was like, I don't know which path to choose. I'm stuck in between. I don't know what to do, because I've been conditioned so hard to just ignore everything and just go along the way. In fact, that at the time, if anyone were to come up to me and say like anything like, will you go out with me, or will you make out with me, or something like that, I would not take it for real. I'd be so conditioned to the point where I would for sure think they were making fun of me. I would be like, there's no way, they have to be making fun of me. They can't legitly like me. There's no way in hell, because my self-esteem was just that low to a point where I don't think so. And I've seen it quite a lot in people in college now. There's a lot of people who have that same mentality. One in particular, there's this obese girl in my biology class who I was trying to be very friendly to, and she was just very, very cautious and sort of angsty and bitter towards me, because she just could not wrap the fact around either I was being so friendly to her, or she just didn't like me. I don't know. But yeah, you can definitely be conditioned to that idea that there's no way anyone will like me, and they have to be making fun of me or something like that if they make some sort of hint at it. And I wasn't so bad. I mean, there's some people in college who are very, very bitter and cruel because they've developed that sort of mentality. But so I was, back to the story, I was flung in this path, and basically after like the second or third time, I was like, okay, I should probably say something. And it was like hell, dude. I literally was stuttering, like I couldn't say anything, but my anxiety was at an all-time high, and I was trying so hard to think of something to say, but I couldn't think of anything, and I was trying to just blurt something out, and I kept thinking to myself, just say something, just say something. And 30 minutes into the ride, I did not say a thing. Was it completely my fault? No, because I mean, there's most avenues to meeting people, at least from what I've seen in real life. It comes from like friends of friends, or being introduced, or some sort of activity you share in common where socializing is very easy. And so this, I wouldn't say it was like a big letdown. And basically, this happened quite a few more times, and there was a case where there's another girl who sat next to me who was also very attractive, and this only happened once. She only sat next to me once, and I wanted to say something, but I never did. And I had this lacrosse stick because I was trying out for lacrosse, and I didn't have enough courage to say anything, so I would just keep like pounding the pocket of the lacrosse stick, like trying to act like I was tough, like I was making the lacrosse stick bigger, and I was trying to, you know, evoke her to say something to me to start the conversation, but she never did. And so that's that. And there's so much more to say about this story, but yeah, she was quite quite the girl. And then what ended up happening was, like, a couple weeks later, she ended up not doing it anymore, and then she just stopped coming onto the bus because she seemed to have stayed after for school activities every day. Was this a big loss? No, because one, there's other girls out there, and I'm not going to be that loser who pines after this girl for years on end. But at the same time, it's like, it has been years, and what I feel is that, like, when I get rejected now, at first it might feel worse, but like instantly afterwards, it's like, okay, now I know nothing will come of this. But then when you have these situations where you're like, what if? That can haunt you for years on end. So I really feel like rejection in certain ways is better than this what if feeling. Did I just end it there? No. I actually ended up like a year later, or half a year later, adding her on Facebook, just being like, hey, you're that girl on the bus. And she responded with like, lol, okay. And then she accepted my request. And I didn't actually talk to her much after that. I didn't talk to her at all after that. I was hoping she would, you know, message me, but she didn't. And I never, I guess, had the balls to message her. I didn't know what to say. Like, literally, we didn't have that much in common. And so I kind of forgot about her, and then years later I checked her up on Facebook, because we were like a few years apart in age. Like, I think I was either a junior while she was a freshman, or yeah, I was a junior when she was a freshman. So back again in college, I checked her up again. Turns out she's now she has a boyfriend with a black dude, which I have nothing against. Judging from the pictures and stuff, and what I know about him, he seems like a really humble guy. He dresses well. He's a very, very decent dude, you know, very polite, very hardworking kind of dude with goals and passions and stuff. So I have nothing against that. And again, I'm not going to be the loser who's like, oh, she's my one and only girl, there's no other girls in the world that can fit me. I'm not going to be that loser. There's plenty of other girls in the world. But yeah, I'm happy for them, and it seems like a very long-term relationship. They've been at it for like years, it seems, and it seems really good. Could something else have happened? Potentially. And it's not like I, you know, lost track of her, but at the same time, girls will change how they think of you dramatically, and I've seen that quite a lot. And I kind of didn't do much, but I did poke her recently, and she hasn't responded. But again, she has a boyfriend. Plus, if she didn't, I mean, poking on Facebook, that's really lame. So I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't respond. But if she didn't have a boyfriend, I'd probably actually talk to her. I wouldn't do something lame like poke her. Regardless, from what I've seen of her, I mean, there's a great potential it couldn't have worked out. I mean, I've overheard her talk a lot to other people, her friends, and she seems like from what I've seen, she's kind of like the typical oh my god, oh my gosh, like oh my gosh, that fashion sense is so whack. Like that's the kind of stuff I've heard her say. Like she's literally said stuff like oh my gosh, look at that donk. Like I literally remember her saying something like that. So in terms of personality, I mean, it's not that big a deal. It probably might not have worked anyways. The biggest thing is, had I been able to do it again, I would not have done the same thing. And nowadays, I've learned from that. Because some losers will not learn from that, and they'll be like, oh, I failed. I won't do that if it happened again. And then they do it again. And again and again and again. And they never change. But for me, you know, right now, I've had the courage to go up and actually start conversations and stuff. So I've actually grown. I'm not like a loser who hasn't grown at all. And so I've started conversations with girls, so I know for a fact that if something like that were to ever happen again, it wouldn't have been the same. I would have been able to say something to her and start a conversation. On the other flip side, I mean, there's so many stories to tell. There's so many things I can tell you in future videos. But I've gone so over the time limit, and I just want to end with this. Girls will change their mind initially about you, especially if they're just meeting you, even if they've shown very clear signs that they like you. And again, I apologize for the background noise if you hear any of it. My sisters are screaming. But girls will change their mind very quickly about you. So just because they showed blatant signs that they liked you at the beginning doesn't mean that they want to marry you or they want you to be their boyfriend. Like, there's so many other stories I can tell where I had that kind of mentality, and then they found out how awkward I was, or how much I stuttered, or how bad I was at conversing, or maybe it was just because they realized how low my self-esteem was. But even the girl in this story, this bus story, she herself, I guess she realized how unconfident I was, and she stopped trying pretty quickly. She stopped sitting next to me. She went along her own way. She conversed with other guys and stuff like that, and she moved on. And if it wasn't for the fact that, like, judging from just her as a person and from what I've seen, that she was a very humble kind of girl, like, I wouldn't have cared at all. Like, I knew she gave me the chance and stuff, but girls, I mean, a lot of girls, they will move on pretty quickly, because especially if they're good looking, they have a lot of options. That's just naturally what being so good looking entitles or entails. So there's a lot of other stories where it's like, sure, they will show signs of interest initially, but you know, you can't just go on that and assume that, like, she's going to want to marry you and she will not look at any other guys, because there's, again, a lot of stories to tell where you kind of just are too shy to initiate, and you get burned pretty badly because, you know, they get bored or they get tired of waiting, I guess, and then they move on to another guy. It's sad, but it is what it is. I mean, for you girl subscribers, I know there's quite a lot out there. Let me know your thoughts. I'm really interested. Same with you guys subscribers. What are your thoughts on this? Mainly the girl subscribers. I want to know. I mean, if you show a guy interest initially, like, what's up with that? Like, after a few weeks, if the guy's too shy to approach you and stuff, you just, like, especially the ones who are very good looking, like, you kind of just, you don't have the balls as a girl to approach. So it seems like a lot of the times you just lose interest and you just move on to another guy. Like, as the farthest you will go is show subtle signs that you're interested in the guy, maybe more than subtle signs, but you'll never have the courage to approach or talk. Maybe you will, but I don't know. I've had some experiences where you just lose interest really quickly, especially if you're exceptionally good looking. But that's my story with this girl, and I don't blame her a lot at all. She was most of the time very nice to me, and she was kind of shy herself, so I wouldn't categorize her as one of these, you know, prissy girls who are, you know, very quick with the guys. I wish I could have talked to her more, but it's not that big a letdown. I mean, there's other girls out there, hopefully. So thank you guys if you actually watched this whole thing. I'm sure it's like 30 minutes long. I wanted to keep it at 10 minutes, but I ended up rambling on to get a lot of stuff in. And even with this story, I mean, there's probably another good 20 minutes of stuff I could tell about it, but that's it for this story I'm going to say. And thank you for watching. I know I'm not the best speaker in the world, and some things were unconfusing, and I didn't articulate my words well, but now my voice is gone, and I thank you guys for watching. So finally, leave a comment discussing your thoughts on this. I'm very interested to see what you guys think. Peace, and thank you for watching this unedited version of my story.